My name is Emma Jo Morris, politics editor at Breitbart. I'm here today because I published a series of news stories 3 years ago in October of 2020 about Hunter Biden's now infamous laptop, also known as the laptop from hell, which is seen as some of the most scandalous reporting of the last decade. What was more scandalous than the reporting itself, though, was the fact that it exposed the unholy alliance between the intelligence community, social media platforms, and legacy media outlets. At the time, I was deputy politics editor at the New York Post, and my reporting showed that despite then-candidates Joe Biden's repeated and furious denials, he was apparently involved in the foreign business deals of his family. Over several days, just weeks before Americans would vote for their next president, I revealed verified, authentic emails from the Biden Scion's hard drive showing Ukrainian business partners receiving leaks from the Obama White House. I documented an off-the-books meeting between then Vice President Biden and a Ukrainian energy executive and introduced the world to the big guy who got action on a deal with CEFC, China Energy Company. The Post published exactly how the material for the reporting was obtained, even identifying our sources, as well as a federal subpoena showing the FBI was in possession of the material the story was based on and had been since December of 2019. But when the stories appeared on social media that morning, the venue where millions of Americans go to find their news and editors to get their angles, within hours the reporting was censored on all major platforms on the basis of being called hacked or Russian disinformation. Twitter refused to allow users to share the link to the stories, banned the links from being shared in private messages, a policy, by the way, that's used to clamp down on child porn, and locked the Post out of its verified account. Facebook said it would curb distribution and reach of the links on its platform. However, the stories were not based on hacked materials, nor were they Russian disinformation, and despite those claims appearing to come out of thin air at the time, we would eventually learn that they actually didn't come out of thin air at all. On October 19th, 5 days after the Post began publishing, Politico ran a story headlined, "Hunter Biden's story is Russian disinfo, dozens of former intel officials say." God, I can't even say that with a straight face, you know? Politico printed a letter completely uncritically from veteran members of the US intelligence community, falsely claiming that the Post expose has, quote, all the classic earmarks of a Russian information operation. My God. Most notable among the signatories of that letter were Jim Clapper from former DNI, Michael Hayden, former CIA, John Brennan, former CIA, despite having such damaged credibility following their participation in the Russia collusion conspiracy theory. A few days later, on October 22nd, when Biden appeared in the second presidential debate and was confronted with the facts of the Post's reporting, he said to Trump, quote, 50 former national intelligence professionals said this, what he's accusing me of is a Russian plot. But it was not, and he knew that. Now, fast forward to this year, 3 years later. Just last spring, House investigators revealed it was a call by now Secretary of State Antony Blinken to former acting CIA Director Michael Morell that prompted the spy letter published by Politico, which bypassed agency approval processes that would have been normally applied. It is also now known that ahead of my reporting, federal agencies were priming social media companies to execute an operation to discredit it. According to internal documents released by Elon Musk upon his acquisition of Twitter, the FBI and other intelligence community members essentially directed the platform's censorship operation, in part externally by working with top management and in part internally by social media companies hiring eye-popping numbers of agency alumni. Journalist Michael Schallenberger reported, based on documents he obtained from Musk, that during all of 2020, the FBI and other law enforcement agencies repeatedly primed Twitter executives to dismiss reports of Hunter Biden's laptop as a Russian hack and leak operation. Feds arranged for top secret security clearances to be granted to Twitter management and even had encrypted messaging networks set up, which they dubbed a virtual war room. To this day, hundreds of people from the intelligence community work at social media companies. Over the last few years, my reporting has been confirmed by virtually every mainstream news outlet, from the Washington Post to the New York Times to Politico, when the stakes were nothing, by the way, 2 years later. No one denies that the laptop is real, that the origin story is exactly what I told you it was in the first place. This elaborate censorship conspiracy wasn't because the information being reported on was false. It was because it was true, and it was a threat to the power centers in this country. What this relationship between the US government officials and American corporations represent is an unprecedented push to undermine the First Amendment, the right to think, write, read, say whatever we want. And how we respond will determine whether we see a free press as inalienable or as optional. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Morris. Mr. Sauer, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
My time, because what I really want to talk about here is evidence. Evidence, evidence, evidence. Mr. Johnson was so eager to talk about what he called the hard evidence, and yet all we heard again was him repeating allegations without identifying any evidence. You can repeat all of these allegations as much as you want, but it doesn't make them true.
Well, gentlemen,
you are not witnesses. I don't have enough time, unfortunately. You are not witnesses to any of this conduct, and just because you say it over and over, it doesn't make it so. And if we're talking about censorship here, which I believe is presumably the reason why Mr. Kennedy is here, the tweet that you've identified was never taken down. Whatever the government may have tried to do, and I don't agree that it tried to do what you said it did, it wasn't taken down. So how can the government actually censor anyone if there's enough freedom within the companies they're talking to that they reject whatever request that the government makes? I want to focus now, Ms. Morris, on the laptop. There's been a lot of talk about the laptop being real. And that is true. There was a laptop. It's a computer, keyboard, screen. It is real. But you never got a laptop before you wrote that story, did you?
That's correct.
You got a hard drive.
Hard drive.
And you received that hard drive from Rudy Giuliani, right?
Yep.
Okay. Who had been openly associating with an agent of Russian intelligence in the months leading up to your story. You agree with that, right?
I guess.
Now, did you do a forensic examination of that hard drive before you printed your story?
We had tech people in the Post looking at it, yes.
That's a forensic analysis?
No, not.
I highly doubt the New York Post has the ability to do a forensic analysis of a hard drive. Okay. Ms. Morris, were you the primary drafter of this article?
Yes.
Bruce Golding was not the primary author?
No.
Drafter?
No.
Did he help with the article?
Yes.
And then isn't it true that he decided to withdraw his name from the byline because of concerns that he had?
I wasn't involved with that.
Well, isn't it true, whether you were involved in it or not?
I don't know the details.
But he did withdraw his name from the byline.
His name was not published.
Right. Well, I'd like to introduce for the record an article in the New York Times that says, the first line is, New York Post front page article about Hunter Biden was written mostly by a staff reporter who refused to put his name on it, two Post employees said. Now, I would note, you also said that this article was determinative of the election, but there was a pause for 24 hours, and there was a tremendous controversy. And there is no doubt that this article received far more attention because of the controversy than it would if it had ever been published without any controversy. And it is odd to hear my colleagues and Ms. Morris talk about their somehow expert knowledge about whether it affected the election, because we're not hearing a lot about Jim Comey, although one of my colleagues did say that he interfered in the 2016 election, and that is correct. He interfered on behalf of Donald Trump against Hillary Clinton by unnecessarily announcing an investigation 6 days before. The majority would like us to believe that there's some broad government conspiracy, but in reality, this government is playing by the book. That is why Joe Biden's Justice Department has allowed a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney to continue his investigation of the president's son, which is in direct contrast to what the former president did by weaponizing the Justice Department. And I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The chair now recognizes himself. Hard evidence. Mr. Johnson said that
lạnh buồn ơi, khuya nay anh đi rồi, bao nhớ nhung xa vời, ôi nói không nên lời để cạn niềm yêu mến anh. Phút gần gũi này thôi, khuya nay anh đi rồi, tay nắm tay không rời, mắt ngắm xa chân trời, mà lòng nghe nhớ thương hoài. Anh ơi chớ quên ngày mai, đã có em chờ anh, chung xây đẹp ý đời. Tương lai e ấp trên môi, yêu nhau ta thầm nói, nụ cười trao duyên mới, ước vọng để mà vui. Khuya nay anh đi rồi, đem chí trai xây đời, đem mến thương cho người người đợi chờ anh ơi. Phút gần gũi này thôi, khuya nay anh đi rồi, tay nắm tay không rời, mắt ngắm xa chân trời, mà lòng nghe nhớ thương hoài. Anh ơi chớ quên ngày mai, đã có em chờ anh, chung xây đẹp ý đời. Tương lai e ấp trên môi, yêu nhau ta thầm nói, nụ cười trao duyên mới, ước vọng để mà vui. Khuya nay anh đi rồi, đem chí trai xây đời, đem mến thương cho người người đợi chờ anh ơi. Đem chí trai xây đời, đem mến thương cho người người đợi chờ anh.